A little pause. Welcome back to another live. I'm your host, Joseph Lewin. And what would happen if you are super successful in your career? You have an amazing sales career, drive millions of dollars in revenue, turn around an insurance agency. You have the success that most people only dream of. And you have a family, a husband that's a loving husband. You have a daughter, your family life is going well, but you find that you're still completely miserable because there's something that's missing. Well, my guest today, Kim Angeli, had that experience. She was in tech sales and drove millions of dollars in revenue for her company, turned around her dad's insurance agency, but then really found herself in this place where she wasn't happy. Even though she was part of a country club, making lots of money, there was something that was missing. And so Kim's going to walk us through the transformation that happened in her life that lets her be happy and have gratitude, really, no matter what else is going on in her life. So, Kim, super excited to dive into your journey.
Awesome to be here with you.
Yeah, so I've known you for a little while now, and anybody who meets you, there's going to be two things that they're going to take away. One is going to be that you are full of joy. When you leave a conversation with Kim, it's contagious. You're going to feel more joyful. Even if you're talking about something hard, you're probably still going to feel a certain level of joy. And the other thing is, after people meet you and they hear you talk, they know that you are the queen of gratitude. You have this approach to life and this mindset of gratitude. And I feel like, I mean, I thought this, and I feel like a lot of people who meet you would immediately assume that that's just who you are. That's your personality, right? That's what comes naturally to you and how you've always been. But have you always taken a grateful approach to life and business?
No, no, I have not. There are versions of me, Joseph. And I tell people this, it's hard for you to imagine that version of Kim in college. I've got roommates from college who are like, she owns a gratitude company. Are you kidding me? I mean, she's a self-centered only child. How could she possibly? And then when I tell people I'm an only child, they're like, what? Because there's a lot of stuff with that. And then in corporate America, I mean, if you got between me and my quota of 1.5 million a week, I mean, you might have thought like the wicked queen of the West had called you. I mean, I've been counseled in corporate America on my behavior, which is why, I'm probably not there anymore 24 years later. So, and then, I had critical conversations in insurance that I would have had better conversations with had I been living in gratitude and not grumpiness, and not seeking out what's not going well, right? My default was like looking at what wasn't going well. I mean, even though my life was amazing, I was looking at I was grumpy because I wasn't looking at what was going well, which is gratitude. And I think I told you, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to dive into, there was a real turning point for you and something that really kind of forced you in a sense, or it was a holding up a mirror moment for you that we're going to get into in a second. But maybe you could just dig a little bit deeper into the mindset that you had, because you had a mindset that I feel like a lot of people are coaching people to have. Like, you were you had hustle, you knew how to work hard, you were driven to the point where you were willing to basically do anything within, morality to win, right? That was legal to win. Yeah. And so maybe explain a little bit more about the mindset that you had at that point.
Well, I mean, it's the mindset of, was it ever enough? Right? Like, I mean, you're winning, you're always winning, but it's like chasing this ideal. Was it ever enough? Like, and I just felt like internally, yes, on the outside, it looks like I have everything together. And I told you there's a picture of me on my staircase now where I know that picture was taken. And I was miserable in the skin I was in, even though on the outside, it looked like Kim had it all together. Right? And so I was in a grumpy state internally. Like, I mean, I could have brought on a really big client or whatever and still be like, this is it. Because happiness, when you're in gratitude, people that are grateful are happy. Right? Happiness, you don't have happiness and then you're grateful. You're grateful and then you have happiness. And happiness is it's an inside job. And it starts with gratitude. for yourself, gratitude for others. And it's not about like, that's just the way it starts. And it's what is going well in your life, not what's going wrong. And I was always like, kind of like, what was missing? Like you've met people, you could hand them a lottery ticket and they're like, oh my God, look at all the taxes I have to pay. Right.
Yep.
Like that kind of mindset. I mean, you could hand them whatever and it's never enough. And so that's where I was. It was like, I achieve, and have all these things and be like, where's the internal happiness that was missing for me? And that's when I sought out gratitude after this gentleman had this thing to say to me where I became aware of my behavior.
Yeah, and it's interesting because any kind of success amplifies what's already inside of you, right? Whether that's money or fame or whatever the case. It's not when you get that thing now all of a sudden you're going to be somebody different than you were before. It's only going to amplify that, right? So the more successful you are, the more that it brings out the intensity of that mindset, which could really be damaging for your team. It can really be detrimental to the people around you. And you could be hitting the same level of success, and just the way that you think about it and the way that you think about yourself and your team and what you're achieving can impact not only you, but then the people around you. So what was the turning point for you? I know there was like a specific moment that really woke you up.
So in the insurance business, we have premium finance. So if somebody has a really big account that a normal insurance company won't insure, then you go out to a premium finance company and they'll finance the premium because it's due all at one time. So if you had a $50,000 premium, it's due all at one time. So this premium finance gentleman was calling on me, and he's sitting in my office, and I own the agency, and it's, I'm in the corner office or whatever, and he's in the chair, and I just start rattling off like what our goals are and blah, 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 and all the things that I have going on in my goals. I'm a self-directed achiever. And he's like, wow, woo, girl. A little bit of Cruella going on there. I was like, what? So has anybody ever said anything to you? And then you like are in the moment of like, you're like, what? And it just stopped me. And I was like, wow, oh, okay. Well, I'm grateful for him to actually saying it, right? Because I was this manager who, and I know this is so hard for some people to see, but this was me. So let's just imagine for a moment, we did homeowners associations and communities, and we would have mortgage people call or real estate agents call, and they needed a certificate of insurance. So let's just imagine that a real estate agent or a closing attorney got a hold of me and said, well, your team didn't get us the document we need for closing, which happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would never consider, was the person on the other end of that phone lying or they hadn't really asked for it. So this is grumpy Kim. Okay. This is, I'm a salesperson who suddenly is running an insurance agency, and I have employees, which, probably I was like, what happened here? I own the place. So I would take the call, and I would just assume that my employee didn't do it, without considering maybe the other person on the phone was not being in their true self. And I would go throw up on my employee. God bless them all. Why didn't you do this? And so that was my personality, because I love my father, but that was his personality as well. And he'd been in insurance for a very long time. He was very temperamental. And so sometimes my dad and I, before I started, we would literally like, we're not even Italian. We don't even know what we are. We don't really we're just whatever we are. We're little mutts. I don't even know what ethnicity we are. We're Southern. We would like yell at each other in his office. And then we'd come out of the office and we'd tell the staff, oh, we're going to lunch. And they'd be like, what just happened here? Like, weren't they just cussing each other out? And so that was what I grew up in. But when that guy said that to me, I took a book I bought in 2001 in the airport from Jack Canfield, and I dusted it off. And I started reading The Power of Focus. And in that book was gratitude. And that's what started my journey of choosing grateful living. And that wasn't instant, Joseph. when you're rewiring your brain and your state, from grumpy to grateful, it's a process. But I started it with one note every night of what I was grateful for.
Yeah, it's pretty intense for somebody to call you Cruella, but at the same time, like like you said, that's something to be really grateful for because sometimes, I mean, most of the time, it's hard for us to see what's going on with ourselves. If somebody doesn't step in and go, "Hey, time out. This is how you're
Right,
coming across," and
right.
so that's really powerful that you, first of all, that he would say that to you, and second, that you actually internalized that and went, "Wow, maybe that is true about me." Okay, so you read this book and you start recognizing, "Hey, I'm missing something here," and ultimately, it wasn't necessarily like a tactic, right? You were missing a mindset. And I feel like mindsets, we've talked about it before, but I feel like mindsets are one of those things that can seem very like ethereal and woo woo, and it's like, I think a lot of people get turned off when you say something like, oh, it's a mindset, right? But it really is, right? It comes down to the way that you view yourself, the way you view the world, how you think in that internal dialogue that's going on in your own head. And no matter how hard you try to hide that internal dialogue, it's going to come out, and whether it's through stress or whatever the case is. So you read the book. What happened next?
Well, I started applying the principles from Jack Canfield, my mentor. And I just started because I'm sure I read the book in 2001 when I got laid off from corporate America, but I never applied the principles. See, I tell
Mm,
people that there's a lot of shelf help, and that's a Jack Canfield
I
word.
love
There's a
that.
lot of shelf help behind people or in their closets or in their boxes of books. But none of it works until you have inspired action. And so I tell people when do we take inspired action to make change is when your life is not going so well. And that was in 2000. So I had him say that, and then I dust off the book. And then I really dug into gratitude when my dad got sick. And I found myself having to save the agency. And we lost $100,000 in the agency 30 days before he got sick. And
Wow.
so if you'd asked me, was that you're a great one? I would have said no. But that's when I leaned into gratitude and grateful living, because that's when we lean into things. I mean, if somebody's life
Mm,
is great and it's amazing, it's very different. They don't really call me up. My clients call me when life's not great. And they're
mm,
like, oh, I think you have something I want, fun and profitability in my business. And so, but see, they don't come to people when everything's amazing. Right. See, we make change when things aren't great. We seek it out. I mean, most people don't seek it out when life is good.
right. So then, yeah, what transpired in your life and your business after that? So like you have this moment, it's a real awakening, and then you start working on having this grateful mindset, but you weren't working on having the grateful mindset when everything's going great. It actually is being applied at a moment where from the outside, it's maybe one of the less successful moments
Right.
in your
Right.
career, right? There's all these negative things going on, and your tendency would have been to go negative, but instead, you kind of flip that around. What did that do for your business and then for you personally when you started making those changes?
Well, you're rewiring your brain. And so once you do gratitude consistently, and I mean choosing grateful living, writing gratitude down, writing it down rewires the brain. And I study this, I'm a nerd about it. It's writing it down changes the brain, and then you're going to seek out what is going well.
Mm,
It's not overnight. It's not an overnight process. Somebody's like, "Oh, I wrote in that journal for a couple of days." No, no, no. That's like going to the gym for 2 days and hoping you look like, I don't know, your favorite athlete. I mean, they don't go to the gym twice a week. They go to the gym every day, or at least 6 or
yeah.
5 days a week. So are you going to be where do you, how much change do you want to make? And, does your life depend on choosing grateful living? Because what happens is everything we don't get what we want. We get what we attract. So if you're giving out grumpiness, you're going to attract grumpiness. If your mind is in chaos, you're going to attract chaos. But if you're at a level of gratitude and you're seeking out gratitude, now I'm not saying I don't ever get grumpy. In fact, my husband, we were at lunch or something this weekend. He was like, "Hey, no. I responded to the waitress probably in a way that he saw like 2 decades ago. And he has permission to call me out on it. Like he has permission to say, hey, no, what was that? Because
Mm,
see, we can't always be, I mean, we can't always be in gratitude. That's not even, it's not even realistic. But I'm not going to stay there long. See, a lot of people will stay there for the whole day and then it turns into a week and then they've got a grumpy month and then they just become grumpy
yeah.
and nothing is going well because they spiral into it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting actually because this just brings up. I just have these two portraits in my head of two different people that I've met over the years who are older, probably about the same age, like maybe 70, somewhere in that range. So the one lady, I used to sweep chimneys for 5 years, and I was in and out of people's houses, and I got to see all kinds of grumpy people because I was
I
there
bet.
telling them that their fireplace that they love burning every day uh, was not functional, and they needed to spend a couple $1,000s to fix it. I remember this one lady. She was living on Social Security, and you could tell she had health problems, and so did her husband. And I told her, hey, I'm sorry, but there's this damage in your chimney. Here's where it is, and you really shouldn't burn it. It's not safe to burn. And she literally, like, her face changed, her expression changed, and it was scary. She like tore into me, right? She starts screaming at me, cussing me out, like going absolutely, crazy, right? And it's all of these years of her whole life of every time something's happened, you could tell she gets negative, she gets angry, isn't willing to like take a minute, take a breath, think about what's coming, right? And it came out,
Right.
I'm just like this, I was probably 22 at the time, like this young guy in her house, and she's thinks it's okay to just totally cuss me out. She ended up apologizing after a little bit, but it was like totally crazy, right? And then it was like a year and a half ago. My wife and I were in the airport coming back from a trip to Kenya, and we met this guy in line for the airport, and he was telling us about how he and his wife were in, I think they were in South Sudan doing work there, and he had just gotten out of a situation where he and his wife were hiding under the bed with gunfire going on all around them. Like legitimately, their lives were in serious peril. They had to be evacuated out of there. They were from England. All of their staff from the area were still there in danger. And like it was a really, I mean, just about as crazy of a situation as you could have. This guy had the most joy of anyone I've ever met in my entire life. His eyes were
Wow.
like glowing with joy. It was unreal. Like it's a moment that's going to stand in my mind of like, I want to be like that, right? When I'm 70 years old, I want to be somebody that when people are in my presence, they're like, that person has joy. And it wasn't based on his circumstance, right? It's based on um, something internal.
Right. Well, because I'll tell you, I teach E plus R equals O, which is part of the success principles. And we have an event plus we have a reaction equals the outcome. And
Hmm.
100 and a lot of people are reacting instead of responding, right? They're reacting emotionally. That lady reacted to you. She didn't own the pause and then responding with emotional mastery. And what we're lacking right now, my opinion, is we are lacking in the country right now is emotional mastery
Hmm.
where you have something, because I'll tell you, I mean, we do a lot of real estate transactions in this household. I mean, I've handled a lot of insurance claims in my lifetime, and people don't realize how we're reacting actually affects the outcome. So and we talked about this before. So that lady was acting in anger, which is 150 megahertz, which is a very low energy. That's where disease lives. That's where her life, like, I'm sure if you took a snapshot of her life, I mean, she might have been living in some chaos. I don't know. She
Definitely.
wasn't living in abundance, which is gratitude is abundance, complaining is poverty. I teach that every day and twice on Sunday. Gratitude equals abundance, complaining is poverty. And so we get what we are. And so if you're just always out here spewing grumpiness and complaining, you're going to get back exactly what you just put out. And so we've got to stop and pause and say, am I going to respond to this in gratitude and grace, which is 900 megahertz for you scientific nerdy people out there like me? Now I'm one of those people because I want to make sure it's measurable. You get what you measure. 900 megahertz, disease doesn't live there. You look younger when you're in gratitude, because I tell people all the time, I see some really older, grumpy people, but they were young and grumpy. They didn't just become grumpy because they're old.
Yep.
If you go back and look, they were grumpy when they were young. They just never changed their state of gratitude or happiness. So that's my opinion. I'm sticking with it. But
well, we've all met people like that too, right?
Right. It's grateful living, right? I choose gratitude as a lifestyle. So I'm not going to write in my gratitude journal in the morning and do my time with God, which is what I do, and do my, grounding and all the things, and then get in my forerunner and go out in traffic and be a jerk. I'm going to continuously seek to respond to things happening around me in a state of gratitude. So there's a lot of traffic outside my neighborhood, and sometimes it takes me 10 minutes to make a left. Now, there are some people that live around me that would complain about that, but I just sit there and I wait and I wait, and I'm grateful I have a car that I love, and I wait, and I just don't react. I don't respond. I'm not going to give it energy. I've got to make a left. Why would I give it energy and be like, "Ugh." I mean, you've seen these people. And so they're responding to something they can't even change. And they're giving it a lot of energy. When my father taught me this word, next, Kimberly, next, just move along. Just keep walking. Just move along, because some things aren't worth your response or your energy.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, so I want to get practical, and then I also have a copy of my gratitude journal, so we're going to talk about that in a second. But I do want to make this practical, because I feel like most people don't have the level of joy that you have, and don't live in a state of gratitude. I mean, I meet a lot of people. I talk to people all the time. There's a lot of people I like. I don't know if I've ever met somebody, or very few people, who are living at the level of joy and gratitude that you live at. And it's contagious. It really is. Every time I get a chance to talk to you, I feel more joyful and have more gratitude, really, no matter what's going on. So I think that more people need what you have. They need to work through that. And what you just shared through this whole story is a couple things I think are important to point out. One, you haven't always been like that, right? And you laid that out really clearly, right? Until you get called Cruella, and you're like, whoa, man, that hurts, right? But then you went through this process where it took time, right? Where you were being very intentional about changing your mindset and changing the way you think about yourself, the way you think about other people, the way you think about your circumstances, and you really started to slow down. And instead of responding, you had the emotional fortitude to instead of reacting, you had the emotional fortitude to start responding to situations with a heart of gratitude. So what I'd love for you to do is just give like 2 or 3 things that somebody listening who is listening in, and they go, hey, I even if I'm successful or I'm not, whatever's going on in their circumstance, they are unhappy, they're feeling ungrateful, they're kind of living in those low frequency emotions that are causing turmoil in their life. What are 2 or 3 things that they could do this week that will help them start making that shift towards a more grateful mindset?
Well, the first thing I would tell them to do is, I don't care if you get a Post-it note like this and just write down one thing you're grateful for today. You can do it tonight before you go to bed. Just write it on a Post-it note and go to bed. You could do it in the morning, whatever you want to do, just one note. You don't have to have a huge journal. You don't have to have a notepad. Just write one thing what went well today. Just one win, just one. Something went well today. In fact, maybe you're upright. And then do it again, right? That's how I started. I just did the one note, put in a little box, did another note. I didn't do it every time, so don't beat yourself up. You do one note this week and you do two notes next week. Don't care. You wrote one more note than you'd ever written. Think about thanking someone in your life. This is what I do when I keynote speak. is I say, get your little dream stealers out. I know they're right there. Just get them out. You're either watching them right now while I'm speaking, or they're right near you. And I'll say that next week when I do a speeching. Is that a word? So I want you to text one person. Now in my speaking, I do 3. Is I want you to text one person. I am grateful for you. And if you don't think they're in their phone, put your name. I do this because sometimes we're not being grateful for the people closest to us. So just text them. Text them, I am grateful for you. Now, I've had people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, I texted my husband. And he said, are you done? Because they've never done it, right? They've never done it. And then if you're in a working situation, like you work with someone and you have the ability to leave a little note or compliment someone, like in the thinking of others first, and it has to be genuine. I'm not talking about a fake compliment. I'm not talking about faking gratitude. You can't fake it. You can't fake being genuine. Compliment someone and thank them. So if you're in the grocery store, I say, thank you so much for bagging my groceries, or I'll use their name. Compliment one person genuinely and see how people don't do this. In fact, I had a client I was coaching, and he took his car into get an oil change. And you ever had anybody who refuses to change the clock when the time changes and their clock is off by an hour? You have anybody like that in your life?
Yeah.
I do. And when I get in the car, I change it immediately because I can't stand to look at that. But in his mind, my client had been calculating the hour difference for I don't know, since the time changed. So when he went to get his oil change, they changed the clock for him, which was awesome. He didn't know how to do it. So when he left, he noticed the clock was right. He called the oil change place. And do you know what the oil change guy who answered the phone? He said, hey, I just left there. He's like, oh yeah, what's wrong? The guy said, what's wrong? He said, oh, what's wrong? What happened? What did we do? And my client said, no, I wanted to call and tell you that I really don't know how to change the time. And I got in my truck and the time was changed. And I'm just so grateful because I had taught him to, hey, let's be complimenting others genuinely. And let's take the time, instead of being the great complainer, that you go and you're the great complimenter. Like, when do we go to Google? One other thing you could do. Let's do 4. Let's just be overachievers right now. When do you go to Google to say great things about your favorite restaurant or your favorite business you use locally in your town? When do you go there to leave a review? Not when the service was good. You don't go into the parking lot after the service is good and say, oh my gosh, let's leave them a great review. Guess when you do that? When you get in your car like, that sucked.
Yeah.
Let's leave a Google review. So I want you to think about, what can you do for others? Do for yourself the one note, right? Be grateful for yourself. Do the one note of where you're winning, where you're grateful for something. Do a text to someone, I'm grateful for you. And then compliment someone genuinely, right? If someone goes out of their way to do something for you like that, say thank you. Make sure their boss knows. I am a big advocate on, if somebody goes over and above for me, I'm going to let their boss know. I'm going to let the owner know, because people are not taking the time to share the good news. They're just not.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And it's amazing because I can think of a few people in my life who have done that over the years. And it's actually, I mean, probably realistically not that often, because it doesn't happen that often. But, I can think of a few times where people did reach out and, show appreciation for me in some way. And it's amazing. It really stands out because it doesn't happen that often. And yeah, you were saying our country's in an interesting spot. And it's like, man, what would happen if everybody just did what you just said today? If everybody was doing that, we'd be living in a really different spot right now. So I love that. That's super, super great. Practical things that people could take away. So I want to wrap up by talking about my daily gratitude journal. You recently published your book, and it's awesome. I have a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you for writing it. But you've shared about your journey, and we've kind of gone through all of that. But then you really ultimately just recently decided to publish the book. And so, what led you to write the book, and why do you feel like now is the right time to be getting this message out there?
Well, everybody that knows me knows I run my life in alignment with divine. And I've been using these sheets, which comprises the book up with customers and in my gratitude challenge I did in my Facebook group in the last year. And I've been told by many others to, you need a book, you need a book. You need a book. Okay, yeah, whatever. So, one of those things it wasn't divine timing. So I had seen so much transformation the way these were put together because I'm prompting people, right? So a lot of journals don't prompt you and they just give you a blank sheet of paper and they want you to fill it in. And so
Yep.
I wanted to be prompting people and then saying, you're grateful for this, but why are you grateful for it? And then let's spend some time in silence with our thoughts, which is kind of painful for some people, even myself sometimes, because, sometimes we don't like our thoughts. We don't like our self-talk. So I put it together to give away and to sell when I speak and to share what was transformative for others and not keeping it a secret. Because sharing is caring of your gifts, and God gave you gifts that were not to be hoarded by yourself. And
Mm,
that was a message I got when I was like, oh, I'll get around to it. And we literally, my team and I, we put this together in about 3 weeks.
mm,
And it is miraculous the messages I get from people who have never journaled, they've never considered it. And they're like, I'm a journaler, and I'm using this book, and it is transforming the way I do life and I think, and it's complementing me. It's helping me seek out what's going well. And so this book, my goal, I have a new goal after listening to some amazing books on Audible. My goal is 1 million copies in the hands of others in the next 24 months.
I
And
love
so,
it.
because when we're the ripple of gratitude, Joseph, when you take the 3 things I just said, or anyone who's here, and please message me if you do any of the 3 things we mentioned. Message me on any socials. I respond to them. That if we're being in a state of gratitude and we're grateful for ourselves and others, and we're letting people know, and we're complimenting people, we're reaching out to people because I teach gratitude calls, which means we're reaching out to people because we want to reach out to them and have a conversation, not because we need something or we want to sell them
Mhm.
something. I imagine a world, and I've imagined this world since May 28th of 2015, that people are practicing gratitude like they brush their teeth. It becomes part of who they are. Nobody reminded you today to brush your teeth, I hope. It is a habit you have created because that someone thought enough of you as an early child to help you keep the teeth you wanted.
Yeah.
My Uncle Lars used to say, don't floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep. So basically, I imagine shifting the energy of the world with people choosing grateful living. And I'm not hung up on, you can use a Post-it note, you can use a notebook, you can create your own journal. I don't care how you do it. My goal is that I've inspired you to start choosing
Hmm.
grateful living.
I love it. Yeah, and I put the link on YouTube, and I'm going to post it here in just a second to the LinkedIn as well. So Kim is saying, go use whatever, but no, you should get my daily gratitude journal. I'm posting a link to Amazon to buy it because I totally agree. I mean, we need a shift. The world needs a shift, and definitely in our country, we need a shift in the way that people are thinking and interacting with each other. And I mean, even just dealing with disagreements and dealing with other people in our life totally changes when we slow down and we're acting with more gratitude. It helps us to give more benefit of the doubt and really try to understand where somebody else is coming from. It really changes everything when we make some of these mindset shifts in the way that we're living. And so, yeah, go pick up one of the journals from the link from Kim. And then Kim, what do people get when they buy the journal?
Well, so when you buy the journal, I do have a free private Facebook group that they can join. However, I am working on anyone who has a journal. I will be launching this in the next several weeks. My team and I've been working on it. We're going to have a community in a school group. I already have one, and part of it is a paid part, but we're going to allow people into the community, into the free offering, to be in the community where people are choosing grateful living. And I will post things in there daily. And we're just going to move that from Facebook into school. And if someone even just has their hand on a journal, they get a free ticket. This is the ticket to entry. And we're going to be launching that in the next couple of weeks, because I want people to be able to come together in community and see how gratitude enriches their lives and how it enriches the lives of others when they are the ripple. They are the ripple of gratitude.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Definitely, if you're listening in, go find Kim on LinkedIn or really on most social platforms. You can find Kim Angeli. And if you get a chance, definitely reach out to Kim. She's amazing. I've gotten to spend time with Kim quite a bit over the last year and a half. Been blessed to be able to get to know you and spend a decent amount of time with you now, both online through, one-on-one calls and making some content together. And then also gotten to meet in person twice. And you are the real deal. I can say, I can put the stamp on it that you're not just like this online and then meet in real life and that Cruella comes back out. No.
Right. I'm kidding.
No, you're living this out in your life. And so, yeah, thanks again for joining me. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, friend.
All right. We'll talk soon.